If you ever needed to create presentations as part of your automated AI workflows, you know that's not an easy task and usually results in suboptimal results. Today, I'm going to show you how to do exactly that. So generate really good looking professional presentations using Gamma's new API they've recently released. Hey, my name's Ivan. I've been shipping software for over 15 years to millions of customers. And lately, I've been helping businesses transform their operations using AI in order to save money, get more clients, or serve their customers better. So let's get into it. Now, if you're not familiar, Gamma is an app that can generate presentations using AI. They can do more than just presentations, but that is kind of how they started, and I think how they're mainly being used, at least how I mainly use the app. But the problem is, so far, it wasn't possible to use it programmatically. So you had to go into their interface and build presentations that way. Well, they've recently released an API that allows you to do that programmatically. And here are a couple of examples of presentations generated this way. So this is just a post that I would be posting on LinkedIn that's talking about this API release. And you can see that it's a full-fledged PDF. It's got images inside, but it's also got graphics. It's properly split out into slides, and this is actually the pages are in the format that would be suitable for LinkedIn. So this is one, and then here's another one that's doing the same thing, just slightly different content, but also different themes. So it supports different themes. You can define your own, and so on. So how does this work? Well, I built an example here where we have a form where I can describe what I want. So I'm telling it I want a carousel for a LinkedIn post about Gamma 3.0, introducing their API and so on. Then I've added a few options. These are not all the options you have when you're using this tool, but these are just the basic ones I created for this demo. Now, the most important thing for me would probably be the text mode. So you can either generate text based on the description. So that's what I'm doing here. You can condense the text. So an example of that would be if you had, let's say, a meeting transcript and you wanted that split out into some kind of presentation. And then preserve is if you actually have full text you want in the presentation. You don't want it modified. You just want it split into slides. So those are the three options. I'm going to select generate. Then the type is either a presentation. So that's your typical PowerPoint presentation, a document that's not designed as much as a presentation as more like, let's say, a proposal or something along those lines, or a social post, in which case it will be what I was just generating. So that might be a carousel for LinkedIn or for Instagram or TikTok and so on. So I will just select social, and then you have the amount of text you want generated per slide. So this is essentially, do you want very detailed presentation that somebody's going to take and learn from it, because that's the main thing they're reading, all the way to brief where you are mainly talking about it maybe, or you have your LinkedIn post and the text in the presentation is more just supporting that main piece of text or your voiceover or whatever it is. So that's what I'm going to select here. So I'm just want to brief. And when I select submit, it's going to go into my workflow. So this is what the workflow looks like. You can download the JSON for the workflow from the link down in the description. But the workflow is pretty simple, and this is just a demo, obviously. So I'm taking the data from a form submission, which just has a few of these fields. You can add more if you want to, but normally I would use this inside of some other workflow, for example, my LinkedIn content generation workflow. And from there, we are hitting the Gamma API in order to generate the doc. Now, the documentation for this is on developers.gamma.app. You can see all the available parameters and what they mean and what the options are. The easy way to get this into N8N is to just copy the curl command here, then go in here, import the curl, and it will just get all the parameters in for you. Now, the main thing you're going to need is the authentication. And in order to get the authentication, you'll need to get that from Gamma. I'll show that in a moment. But going down, we have the body and so of the request. And so the parameters are all in here. And here I've just replaced some of the things that came from Gamma documentation with the parameters coming from my form. If you were embedding this into a workflow, then obviously you would replace those as well. So I won't go through all of the parameters here. I don't think that's very useful because they're all pretty well documented on their website. So you can just read through this and see what's available. The ones that were most meaningful to me were describing what kind of text mode I want, what type of post I want, and so on. You can also change image models and decide if you don't want any photos. You can change the theme, which is quite important, because then in your Gamma, you can just define your own themes. So if you go in here, you can create your own, you can import an existing presentation and pick the theme up from there. So that would be really useful if you wanted to keep things consistent. And just to finish the workflow, so once we do this, once we hit the API to generate the document, it's going to return the generation ID. So similar to many of these other APIs that take a while to generate something, like your video generation APIs and so on, it returns an ID. And then from that ID, you need to wait until it's done before you can download the final document. So that's what we do here, where we just get the status. So this is another HTTP request on Gamma, where we are just getting the status of the generation. So I take the generation ID, put that in the URL, and then we're getting the status. So once it finishes, so it took, I'm waiting for 5 seconds here. So this was about a minute. In the meantime, it will just say it's pending. And while it's pending, you want to keep waiting. Once it's completed, you know that it's done and it's ready for download. It will also give you the URL. So you can specify whether you want to export it. You can export as a PDF, you can export as a PowerPoint presentation, or you can just have the Gamma URL, which is kind of like a live presentation at their URL. Now from here, the only other thing is I've specified that I want the response headers and status in the response. And the reason for that is because aside from telling you that it's pending and completed, it might also tell you that there's an error. And in order to know that, you would need the status code. And so that's the next couple of steps. So basically, we're just checking what's the status. So if the status is completed, we know that it's done, it's ready for download. If it's pending, then we know it's still generating. And then if the status code is 400 or more, we know there's some kind of error and we probably want to handle that. Now, once it's done, I just download the document. So we just take that export URL, we just get it. So that's a public URL. So you can just download the export and you are going to get a binary file. So that's here. And we can do with that whatever else is a part of the workflow. If it's not done, if it's still generating, then I wait for a few seconds, in this case, just 5 seconds, and then we go and get the status again. Now, I do need this separate node here because in that previous node, I turned on getting status. So I'm not getting just the generation ID directly as a response. I'm getting it as part of the body. So I need to kind of like push that out into the root of the item, because the get status that's what it's going to be reading. So it's just JSON.generation ID. So it wouldn't be able to read it from the body subsegment. So that's essentially your sub workflow. You could store that somewhere and then call it from another workflow, get the downloaded document, or you can just, embed these few nodes and that would be it. And that really is the gist of it. You can go and play with it. I said I will show you the authentication part. So the unfortunate thing is that you need to be on a pro plan or higher in order to be able to even get an API key. So their API is currently in beta. It probably means it might still change before it goes fully public, but it is available for all pro members. So once you upgrade, you can go into your settings and members, you can go into your API keys, and then you can copy the API key and put that into n8n. And the way that works is if you go in here, you need to select your header authentication. And if I go to edit it, the header name is x-api-key. And then the value is going to be the value of the key you need. Now, there are so many possibilities with this. The one obvious one for me is LinkedIn carousels. And the reason for that is I often want to have some kind of carousel that supports the post, that will maybe have some kind of diagram, that will have kind of like a presentation style short text in a few slides that goes well with the post. And so far, that just hasn't really been that easy to generate and make it good quality. So that's one example. Another example is I've been thinking, for example, there's so many note takers these days on all meetings, and that part is actually annoying. The other day I was in a meeting, and when the meeting finished, I got 15 emails from Otter AI because there were 4 people in the meeting, but there were another 15 people who were not in the meeting, but their note takers were. And then after the meeting, without any permission, the other app basically just sends the message to every participant of the meeting. And it also doesn't actually send you anything useful. It just sends you a link where you have to first create an account in order to log in order to get the transcript. Anyway, that's just a rant. But aside from when you think about meetings, a few years back we used to have we'd have a meeting, and then the next week everybody's trying to remember what was said on the meeting, what was decided, and then if you did it a little bit better, maybe somebody took notes. Now we've got AI taking notes, making summaries, extracting action items. But imagine how much better it could be if you could generate a presentation like this, where not only would it extract the action items, but it could do them in a very, very visual way. And so that's where, for example, that style of condense would work really well. So you might give it a full transcript and just say, okay, condense this and make a presentation for this for me. I'd love to know what kind of use cases you've got for this and how you're going to use it. So leave a comment down below. And if you'd like me to help you automate your business, book a free discovery call down in the link as well, and we can take it from there. Looking forward to hearing from you.